The baker with the crimson apron crouched next to the elderly gentleman, offering a freshly baked roll that he accepted with shaky fingers. She never inquired about his past or why his gaze seemed so weary. Each dawn, she simply provided a meal. No interrogations, no expectations. But when the 11th sunrise came, everything transformed. Four military vehicles arrived in precise alignment. An officer in uniform emerged clutching an envelope. The entire bakery grew hushed. And as the woman stepped outside, everyone rose to their feet. Welcome to Heartfelt Narratives, where stories of generosity and humanity find voice. Let's discover the truth behind this encounter. In the sun-baked corner of Santa Lucinda, Arizona, mornings began with the inviting aroma drifting from Elena's bakery. A modest establishment sandwiched between an aging pawn shop and an empty fuel station. The breeze carried hints of melting butter, cinnamon, and freshly proofed dough. Carmen Valdez, 35, had never ventured beyond this community for longer than a brief holiday. Daily before sunlight crested the distant Colorado ridges, she was already mixing ingredients, forming crescents, baking blueberry-filled pastries, and crafting the cheese-topped buns the townspeople adored. She wasn't boisterous, avoided loud laughter, declined after-work gatherings, yet remembered special dates others forgot. She recognized which patrons preferred extra sweetener in their beverages and which ones valued stillness over conversation. And she was uniquely attentive to the elderly man, his gray hair disheveled beneath a weathered hat, his jacket tattered and dusty, sitting silently on the bench by the waste containers precisely at 6:10 a.m. Daily he requested nothing, just perched there, back slightly curved as if attempting to disappear from existence. His gaze wasn't empty but vigilant, aware in a manner suggesting decades of caution. Initially, Carmen wondered if he awaited someone's arrival. Yet after 5 days, 10 days, 3 weeks, he remained steadfast at that bench, never engaging with anyone. Nevertheless, each morning when she cleaned the rear patio before opening, he acknowledged her with a subtle nod. Nothing beyond that gesture. Then one frosty Tuesday dawn, with ice crystals still decorating the window panes, she emerged carrying a tan paper sack. Inside rested a leftover turkey sandwich, a cranberry scone, and a steaming cup of dark roast with a secure lid. She didn't directly offer it to him. She merely set it on the bench beside him while passing and murmured mostly to herself, "Kitchen prepared too much today." The man observed the bag, then studied her face. His expression showed neither desperation nor impatience, only careful assessment, as though determining whether this was compassion or deception. Then he nodded again, slightly deeper this time. The following day he returned. So did the paper sack, and silently their unspoken ritual began. No greetings, no inquiries, no introductions, just a bag, a beverage, and a quiet acknowledgement between two strangers. She revealed this to no one. She wasn't entirely certain why she continued. Perhaps it stemmed from something her father once described about conflict zones, how children would search for nourishment beneath soldiers' feet. Or perhaps it reflected her own memories of experiencing hunger as a child. Not during wartime, but in an eerily silent home after illness claimed her mother. Or perhaps the reason was simpler. He needed food and she could provide it. People soon began noticing. One Wednesday morning, as Carmen arranged fresh pastries on display, she detected whispers near the coffee station. "That man's back again," a woman commented, not entirely rude but deliberately audible. "Carmen's starting a charitable operation now?" a younger staff member joked while cleaning the corner table. "Or do we just distribute free-baked goods to anyone who hasn't groomed in weeks?" Carmen remained silent. She continued slicing the fresh loaves, each motion purposeful, each piece arranged as if carrying a private significance she preferred undisturbed. Several days later, Mr. Emilio, a former educator who enjoyed his double espresso each morning, peered through the window and disapprovingly shook his head. "During my time, individuals like that wouldn't linger near respectable establishments, and nobody offered handouts just because someone appeared pitiful." Carmen smiled politely without responding. Her hands never paused as they sprinkled flour onto the next batch of rolls. Only Teresa, the senior lottery vendor who positioned herself 2 blocks away near the marketplace, leaned closer as she collected her regular black coffee and whispered, "You've inherited your mother's compassion. Did you know that?" Carmen hesitated momentarily. Teresa had known her mother, the woman who transformed leftovers into soup for strangers during harsh winters. Carmen couldn't clearly recall her features anymore, but remembered those hands. Always comforting, always busy, always scented like herbs and dishwater. That same morning, the man failed to appear. Carmen still prepared a bag, still brought out the coffee, still positioned it on the bench at 6:10. A gust scattered the napkin from the package. It tumbled across the vacant lot like a small banner, representing no nation. She watched it drift away. The next day he didn't come, nor the day after. On the fourth day, Miguel, the bakery proprietor, summoned Carmen to his office. The space was compact, floored with fading tiles, and permeated with the scent of printer toner and scorched coffee. He spoke directly. "Carmen, I understand your intentions are pure, but customers are beginning to talk. That man creates discomfort among patrons." She gripped her apron tighter. "He's never entered the premises. He's never requested anything." "But you're providing something daily," Miguel stated. "This isn't a charity kitchen." She remained quiet. Not from lack of response, but because speaking might release tears. "I cover the cost myself," she finally answered. "It's surplus food. It doesn't affect inventory." Miguel exhaled deeply, massaging his temple. "Listen, I'm not demanding you stop. Just be discreet, okay? If you're leaving food, do it somewhere less visible." Carmen nodded in agreement. That evening, she emptied her gratuity container at home. It wasn't substantial, just sufficient for bread, coffee, and a pastry daily. She inserted several bills into a plain envelope and inscribed in careful handwriting, "Covered 5 days breakfast." Nobody would request proof. Nobody needed verification. To Carmen, kindness required no authorization, only resolve. A week passed. The bench outside the bakery, where a paper sack and a steaming beverage had awaited each morning, now remained vacant. For the first occasion in nearly 2 months, Carmen found herself preparing food without an intended recipient. Still, she packaged the meal at 6:10, still positioned it on the bench, still observed from inside. Nobody arrived. By Saturday, powerful desert winds dislodged the open sign. Carmen collected the untouched meal and refrigerated it. She couldn't consume it, couldn't discard it, just couldn't leave it exposed anymore. The absence felt overwhelming. 10 days since her last sighting of him, she received a notification from Teresa containing a social media post link. It displayed a photograph captured from across the street, clearly showing her bakery, her bench, and her brown paper sack sitting untouched. The text stated, "Elena's Bakery now serving non-existent patrons." Apparently, public image matters more than practical thinking. The responses were harsher. "Publicity stunt. Wager she claims it's for disadvantaged individuals, then discards it. Nourishing vagrants only encourages more. Some individuals truly need perspective." Carmen secured her phone, refused to continue reading. That night, in her modest apartment above the bakery, she accessed the lowest drawer of her dresser, containing her mother's final possessions. Inside rested an aged metallic container, worn but meticulously maintained. She carefully opened it, extracting a battered journal with frayed edges and a leather closure. Her mother's diary. Carmen turned to the passage she'd repeatedly read throughout childhood. The ink had diminished, but the penmanship remained consistent, tranquil, patient, and distinct. "Shared half my portion today with a sobbing child outside the perimeter. Some claimed I was foolish, that he might represent danger, but his expression reminded me of myself the day my father vanished. Nobody grows poorer through sharing sustenance, but those who forget generosity, regardless of their abundance, remain hungry in ways they'll never comprehend." Carmen traced her finger along the final sentence, as if attempting to connect with her mother's essence through the writing. She didn't know the man's identity, didn't know his whereabouts, didn't know if she'd encounter him again, but that knowledge wasn't necessary. He had experienced hunger, and she still possessed bread. On the 11th morning, clouds dominated the sky, and moisture hung in the air, an unusual atmosphere in Santa Lucinda. Carmen was polishing the pastry display when the distinct sound of vehicles on gravel captured her attention. Four military SUVs, non-reflective black, immaculate, and perfectly positioned, halted before the bakery. Their synchronized arrival directed every gaze toward the windows. Even the coffee machines seemed to hiss more quietly. Each vehicle door released with a precise sound. Uniformed personnel emerged in pairs, their actions disciplined and coordinated. No communication, just professionalism, just presence. Then from the primary vehicle, a commanding figure appeared. His complexion weathered by environment and experience, but possessing a steadiness that appeared unshakable. His navy dress uniform was pristine, decorated with commendations and insignia that reflected the diminished daylight. He approached the entrance. The bell above the door chimed, unusually pronounced in the silence. Everyone turned. The atmosphere had stilled. "Is Carmen Valdez present?" the man inquired, his tone controlled yet authoritative. She stood behind the counter, hands still damp from cleaning glass, her voice momentarily absent. "Yes," she replied softly. The man approached with measured strides. "I'm Commander James Martinez, United States Army Special Forces. I'm here fulfilling a promise." From within his uniform pocket, he withdrew a sealed envelope, substantial, formal in appearance, stamped and folded with precision. "This correspondence is from Eduardo Morales, the gentleman you provided breakfast to each morning." Carmen's eyes widened. Her hand sought the counter for support. Commander Martinez continued, "He was the father of Staff Sergeant Luis Morales, one of my finest soldiers. Luis died serving his country 2 months ago during a classified mission overseas. Following that loss, Mr. Morales vanished." A deeper silence descended across the space than before. He carried remorse, beyond anyone's understanding. But 3 months ago, he contacted me. Not regarding his sorrow, not about his son, about you. The commander presented the envelope. In his final message, composed days before cardiac failure claimed him, he requested we locate the woman in the red apron. He wrote, "You never demanded explanations. You never displayed sympathy. You simply offered nourishment every morning as if my existence mattered." Carmen couldn't articulate a response. She barely inhaled. "In his words," the commander stated, voice subtly thickening, "she helped me feel human again, like I represented more than my grief. Tell her she helped a father believe compassion still existed for the broken." He stepped backward, assumed formal posture, and executed a proper salute. Every soldier outside mimicked the gesture, standing at attention in the open area, honoring the woman behind the glass counter of a bakery. Carmen's tears emerged silently. She hadn't rescued anyone, hadn't participated in conflict. She had simply baked bread, prepared coffee, and offered it without questioning motives. Yet somehow that modest action had traversed to a battlefield, had enveloped a soldier's recollection, had become integral to a promise now being honored. Information circulated rapidly. Within 3 days, the image of Carmen positioned behind the counter, tearful as uniformed personnel saluted her, had spread throughout the community and beyond. The regional publication featured a story titled "The Dawn Ritual That Comforted a Grieving Father." Carmen maintained her routine. She still inaugurated the bakery at 5:30 a.m., still wore the identical red apron, still shaped dough with the same quiet concentration. But the customers evolved. A young mother entered with her small child and deposited a folded message on the counter. "My sibling serves in the Marines. Thank you for acknowledging that military personnel leave families behind." An older gentleman placed a military token, one exchanged among service units as a symbol of honor, beside the register, and simply nodded. "Southeast Asia 74, first instance I've trusted humanity again." Some visited not to purchase but to occupy space, to contribute patches, decorations, handwritten sentiments. Veterans, spouses, offspring. Each possessed a narrative, and somehow a simple loaf had granted them permission to share it. Then one morning, among the appreciation cards on the wall, Carmen discovered a letter in childish handwriting. Dear Miss Carmen, I'm Maria, Eduardo's granddaughter. We remained unaware of his passing until military personnel contacted us. But grandmother mentioned he frequently discussed you, said you provided food when others failed to notice him. We discovered a container beneath his bed containing every napkin you folded, every brief note you attached to the bag. He preserved them all. Thank you for showing kindness when he most required it. Love, Maria. Carmen framed the correspondence and mounted it behind the counter. Not prominently displayed, just within her view. A month later, Miguel arrived early, carrying a wooden placard. He spoke little, just installed it beneath the previous bakery signage outside and brushed his palms. The inscription read, "Sustenance for those requiring it." No questions, no judgment. One autumn morning, a teenage girl lingered outside before entering, her hands concealed in her jacket, her expression cautious. My father's serving overseas, she mumbled. My mother cries frequently. I wondered if you still have bread available. Carmen smiled gently. We always have bread, she replied.